In Chapter 3, we covered energy metabolism and metabolic adaptations to training. Metabolism is important because metabolism is the biochemical process of combining nutrients with oxygen to release the energy your body needs to function. Your resting metabolic rate is the number of calories your body burns to maintain vital body functions such as heart rate, brain function, and breathing. We also learned about anaerobic and aerobic metabolism. Your ability to work and live depends on your metabolism, or the ability of your cells to convert proteins, carbohydrates, and fats into energy. Whereas aerobic metabolism requires oxygen, anaerobic metabolism takes place without oxygen. These dual processes are not isolated, but typically work in concurrence. When you describe certain exercises as aerobic and anaerobic, you're referring to the type of metabolism that predominates. Next, I'll be talking about anaerobic glycolysis. Glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose and consists of a series of chemical reactions that are controlled by enzymes. Think of the anaerobic glycolytic system as a V6 car engine opposed to a V8 of the ATP PC system, or a huge diesel engine of the aerobic system. The anaerobic glycolytic system produces a lot more power, but not quite as much or as quickly as the ATP PC system. However, it has larger fuel supplies and does not burn all of its fuel as quickly as the ATP system. So it doesn't fatigue as quickly as ATP does. The contribution of the fast glycolytic system to energy production increases rapidly after the initial 10 seconds of intense exercise. This coincides with a drop in power output as the immediately available phosphagons, ATP, and PC begin to run out. Around 30 seconds of sustained activity, the majority of energy comes from the anaerobic glycolytic system. At 45 seconds of sustained intense activity, there is a second decline in power output. Exercise beyond this point has a growing reliance on the aerobic energy system, as the anaerobic glycolytic system starts to fatigue. There are 4 steps to anaerobic glycolysis. The first one, initially, stored glycogen is converted to glucose. The glucose is then broken down by a series of enzymes. ATP are used to fuel glycolysis, and 4 are created so the body gains 2 ATP to use for muscular contraction. The breakdown of glucose to synthesize ATP results in the creation of a substance called pyruvate and hydrogen ions. The muscle becomes increasingly acidic as the more hydrogen ions are created. Because the system is anaerobic, there isn't enough oxygen to break down pyruvate and synthesize any more ATP. This results in pyruvate binding with some of the hydrogen ions and converting them into a substance called lactate or lactic acid. Actually, it's completely different from lactic acid. In the Krebs cycle, pyruvate is transported into the mitochondria and loses carbon dioxide to form the acetyl coenzyme A, a 2-carbon molecule. When acetyl coenzyme A is oxidized to carbon dioxide in the Krebs cycle, chemical energy is released and captured in the form of NADH, FADH2, and ATP. Metabolic adaptations are specific to the type of training. Your clients should always make progress in their training. That progress is often determined by the metabolic adaptations the body makes. The body will eventually become better at storing phosphocreatine and carbohydrates in the muscle for immediate generation of ATP for energy without oxygen. Better storage will equal an improved ability of the ATP system to work at a higher intensity. A few physiological adaptations to longer durations of training are temperature regulation, body acidity balance, aerobic enzyme activity and production, and lactate removal. Anaerobic fitness, and resistance training are increasingly dependent on oxygen for energy, as they tend to be longer duration with less rest.